the sound of the dogs barking. Something is near. It's a warning. Oh, hello. I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. My name is Neoma, and I am your storyteller for today. For stories in the dark. And I have a very special story for you. Especially to those who believe of things you cannot see. Of creatures, of entities that live within the trees, within the waters, within nature. Are you ready? Come, join me. Kulog by Yvette Tan. Kulog woke to the sound of a car passing nearby. He opened one eye, trying to find the source of the sound. He watched a battered old jeep stop in front of a house beside his stream. A man, woman, and a little girl got down. They had a lot of bags with them. They watched the jeepney leave before carrying their belongings into the house. Kulog frowned. He had new neighbors. Kulog had not had any neighbors for a long time. It was because the house in the barrio said the small hollow block and yarrow house beside the balete tree he lived in was haunted. Many families had tried to live in the house only to move away after a few weeks because of the strange things that happened inside. Some claimed that they hear footsteps crossing the sala when everyone was in bed. Others said that they saw an eerie shape watching them through the windows at night, and sometimes from the tree in the morning. Still others swore that the doors and windows would open and shut by themselves, or that their belongings would disappear only to reappear someplace else. What no one knew was that the house was not really haunted at all. It was really Kulog who opened and shut all the doors and windows. It was also Kulog who walked across the sala when everyone was in bed. He would whisper words when the wind was blowing towards the house, so that his voice would sound soft and eerie and seem to come from nowhere. He would also take things that were lying around and place them somewhere else. And the shape that watched from the darkness, that was Kulog. Of course, that was him. He would crouch outside a window and stare as hard as he could at the person inside. He knew that his red eyes looked scary against the dark night. Sometimes, Kulog could be seen even when he did not want to be. This happened if the sun was shining brightly on Friday morning. Kulog did not know why. It was easier for humans to see Kapres and their Encanto cousins on Fridays. This is why Kulog always wrapped himself with leaves and spent the day asleep. He would wake up at night when he was sure that no one would see him. Why did Kulog do this? It was because he did not like humans, especially families. They were always loud and noisy. You hear that? The children were always running around, laughing and screaming and sometimes fighting. And the adults, Kulog, would gnash his teeth whenever they would have a loud argument. And on karaoke nights, Kulog would stuff leaves in his ears and hide in the furthest part of his tree to escape the songs that were being sung out of tune. Kulog learned a long time ago that the sooner he started scaring the people who moved in, the sooner they would leave. He made up his mind to begin scaring the new family that very night. He tried to get back to sleep. He tossed and turned, but he could not sleep. It was as if someone was staring hard at him. It made him feel very self-conscious. He opened an eye again. He could see a face watching at him from below his tree. Was it a dream? He opened his other eye. The girl who had just arrived was staring at him. Kulog found this very strange. Humans weren't supposed to be able to see him. Yet here was the girl looking straight at him. "Go away," Kulog said, making his voice sound gruff and harsh. The little girl continued to stare. She was tiny. Kulog was sure that he could pick her up between his thumb and pointer finger and break her in half. She wore an old shirt. It was full of holes and was too big for her. She had big round eyes, a small smudge of a nose, and a mouth that was turned down in a slight frown. There was a bruise on her right arm, but she quickly pulled her sleeve over it when she saw him looking. "Go away," Kulog repeated. "Go away, or else I'll eat you." He bared his teeth and waved a hairy hand at her. The little girl stared at him a bit more before turning around and walking back towards the house. Kulog couldn't sleep all afternoon. He couldn't understand why the girl wasn't scared of him. Most humans would run at the sight of Kulog's sharp fangs and huge claws. They also ran from his big cigar he used to smoke. He had given that up a long time ago, ever since he found out that it was bad for his health. That night, he watched the family through an open window. They weren't like any of the families who had lived there before. They didn't own many things. Kulog was relieved to see that they didn't have a karaoke machine. They didn't have a TV either. The girl had only one toy, a small ragged bear with buttons for eyes. One of the eyes was dangling loosely by a thread. The girl's mother was small and mousy, and an older version of her daughter. She was dressed in a duster and was busy unpacking. The father was a big man who went around in sandals, shorts, and slippers. Kulog thought that they seemed like a quiet family. Maybe he would let them stay in the house for a while. Everything was okay for the first few days. It was summer, so the little girl did not have to go to school. Her days were spent doing house chores while her mother went to the market to sell vegetables. Her father would either be asleep or visiting friends and coming home late. Kulog's life did not change. He still slept in the mornings and woke up at night. Except that sometimes he would wake in the early afternoon to find the little girl staring at him. He would always put on his scariest face and tell her to go away. And even though she always did as he said, she never looked scared. One afternoon, Kulog woke from a dream where he was chasing a tikbalang to find her staring at him again. "Go away," he said. She continued to watch him. Her eyes were soft and brown, and when she looked at him, it was not with fear or even curiosity. Kulog wondered about that. The humans who were not scared of him always looked at him as if he was a freak. He always thought that it was because they'd never seen anyone as handsome as him. But the girl looked at him as if he was a favorite uncle. This was strange. "What is your name?" he asked one day. "Angela," she said. Her voice was softer than a whisper, as if she has not used to talking. She was wearing the same shirt she wore the first time he saw her. Some of the holes had been patched, but new ones had appeared to take their place. Kulog noticed that her bear was missing. "Where is your doll?" he asked. "Tatay says I'm too old to play with dolls. He says that they will make me stupid and childish." Kulog did not think this was true. He thought about his sister Amihan, who was 700 years old and lived in a rubber tree in the middle of the forest in Mindanao. She was strong and smart. She helped guard the forest from humans who want to destroy it. And she has hundreds and hundreds of dolls. He told this to Angela, who smiled. "I wished you could tell me, or I wished you could tell that to Tatay," she said. "I miss my bear." Kulog noticed that she had gotten thinner from the last time he had seen her, and that the skin on her upper arms and legs were marked by red splotches and blue-black bruises. He smiled. Human children were always getting themselves into trouble. They were always running and falling down. None of the children he saw had many marks as Angela did. But maybe it was because she was clumsier than others. "I came to warn you," she said. "Warn me?" Kulog asked. This certainly was a surprise. Nobody ever came to warn Kulog about something. Kulog was used to everybody warning everyone. Warning everyone else but him. "About what?" "Tatay is having a party tonight," Angela said. "I know that people like you don't like noise." "People like me?" Kulog asked, not quite hearing the part about the party. He wasn't used to being called a people. He was used to being called a monster or aswang or multo or kapre. Angela nodded. "Like Mutya, who lived in the banana tree in school, and Manong Lupa, who lived under the punso near our old home." The more she talked, the livelier she got. "What's your name?" she asked. "Kulog," he replied. "Angela," he asked. "Do your parents know you can see people like me?" And Mutya and Manong Lupa. Angela looked away. Her voice became soft. "Tatay doesn't like me talking about it. He says people will think I'm crazy." Angela, her mother called from the inside the house. Come help me make dinner. Angela's eyes lost their brightness. She became dull pinpoints. Please, don't be mad when Tatay and his friends come, she pleaded. And don't tell anyone I talked to you, she said, before running off. Kulog tried to go back to sleep but couldn't. He kept thinking about the strange child who could see him and who had warned him about her father's party. But he was not used to being awake in the daytime, and the light hurt his eyes. Pretty soon, he was asleep once again. He dreamed that he was young again, but the tree that he lived in was still surrounded by a forest instead of a barrio. His neighbors had been trees and the creatures that live in them. When humans came, they cut down the tree his grandmother lived in. His family was forced to move. Only Kulog stayed. He made himself big and fierce and scary so that humans would never dare chop down his tree. Soon, he was left alone. Loud laughter cut into his dream. Angela's father and his 3 friends had arrived. They set out a table near the entrance of the house and were talking, laughing, drinking beer, and eating pulutan. Kulog noticed that Angela was more quiet than usual. He skirted around the men like mouse, trying not to be seen, as she gave them beer, chicharon, and calderetang kambing. Once she knocked over a beer bottle. It was a good thing that it was empty, or else beer would have spilled all over her father. Angela, her father roared. So careless! He raised a hand. Angela cowered in fright. Kulog could see tears forming at the corners of her eyes. Pedring, don't! Angela's mother cried. But she could not do anything. She was rooted to where she stood. Kulog had never seen anything like it. Angela's father was angrier than Kulog had ever seen. And all over an empty bottle of beer. He was so angry Kulog could see fire behind his eyes. He knew Angela could see it too. That was why she was so scared. Angela's father raised his hand higher. One of his friends spoke. That's enough, Pedring. She's just a child. And besides, the bottle was empty. I wasn't going to do anything, he said. I love my little girl. I love my little angel, right? He shook Angela, who nodded, even though her face was white and she was still shaking. Good girl, her father said, releasing her. Now, go help your mother. Angela ran to her mother, who led her inside the house. Later, Angela was back serving food and drinks. Kulog was confused. The only time he had seen fire flare behind anyone's eyes was when the barrio was still a forest. A crazy tikbalang had passed by. It was big and strong. It could uproot a tree with one hand and throw it in the air. It took Kulog, his father, and his sister to chase it away. He never thought that he would see it in a human. Kulog sat in his tree and watched the party. He thought about what he had seen and about how Angela's family has been acting ever since they moved in. One by one, Mang Pedring's friends said goodbye and left. It was late when Mang Pedring's finally went inside. He walked in a zigzag way and had to hold on things so he would not fall down. He left all the food and drinks outside for Angela and her mother to clean up. Through the window, Kulog saw him push aside a pile of clothing on the floor. Angela's bear tumbled out from the middle. Mang Pedring threw it aside before falling asleep in the living room. Kulog climbed down his tree. He walked into the house and into the sala. He stood over Mang Pedring, who was snoring loudly. He picked up Angela's doll and walked into the bedroom where she was sleeping. He placed the doll in her arms. Angela didn't wake, but she hugged the doll close. Kulog walked back to the sala. He did not like Mang Pedring, so he decided to play a trick on him. With a snap of his fingers, he turned Mang Pedring's clothes topsy-turvy. He returned to his tree, laughing. When Mang Pedring woke, he found that his shorts were on his head and that his sandal was around his waist. His face grew red with embarrassment and then anger. So, it was true. His house was haunted. All of his neighbors had told him this, but he had not believed them. Mang Pedring was not scared of ghosts. Mang Pedring also did not like people or capres playing tricks on him. "Angela!" he roared. "Sisang! Come here! Now!" Angela and her mother hurried out of the room. When they saw Mang Pedring standing in the middle of the sala with his shorts on his head and his sandal around his waist, they burst out laughing. This made Mang Pedring even angrier. He started to curse and throw things around. Aling Sisang ran behind a table, pulling Angela with her. Angela followed her mother, dragging her doll with her. Mang Pedring saw this and it made his anger worse. "I told you to throw that out," he yelled, chasing after his daughter. Angela raced past her father and ran out the door and towards Kulog's tree. Kulog saw all this through the window. Even the crazy tikbalang wasn't this out of control. He saw Angela running towards him, so he climbed down his tree and ran to meet her. Kulog opened his arms and Angela ran into them. Kulog heard a scream. "Capre!" Aling Sisang shrieked. She had followed her husband and daughter outside. "A capre has Angela! Help!" Kulog was alarmed. He did not know that it was a Friday. The humans could see him, He wanted to run back to his tree, but he didn't want to leave Angela alone. "Get away from my daughter," Mang Pedring yelled. He was still mad, but Kulog could also see that he was scared. He did not dare go near Kulog. Kulog could see the neighbors coming out of their houses. "Capre!" one of them yelled. "He's got the little girl!" Another one screamed. "He's going to hurt her! Let's get him!" Everyone rushed at Kulog. Some held bolos and others had big pieces of wood. Kulog began to roar. He grew twice his height. The hairs on his skin stood on their ends, and his claws got longer and pointier. He roared so loud he could be heard in the next barrio. The people drew back, but one brave one ran to Kulog and pulled Angela away. "Don't!" Angela said. "He's my friend." But no one would listen to her. Everyone ran towards Kulog, but before they got near him, he disappeared. "Chop down his tree!" someone yelled. "It's the reason no one can live in the house for very long." Everyone ran to Kulog's tree. They hacked it with sharp bolas until it fell to the ground. Even after it had fallen, they continued to chop it until it looked like scattered firewood. Aling Sisang ran to Angela. "It's all right," she said, trying to comfort her crying daughter. "The monster is gone." But Angela continued to cry, and Aling Sisang couldn't figure out why. Mang Pedring had trouble sleeping that Friday. He drank less and laughed less, and became a quieter person. Aling Sisang was always looking over her shoulder because she was afraid that the capre would appear and take her daughter away. Angela got bruises a lot less often after, if at all, but sometimes she would spend afternoons staring sadly at the spot where the balete tree used to stand, missing her friend. After a couple of weeks, she and her family moved away. A new family came to live in the house, but soon they had to move away too. They didn't want to live there because sometimes they would hear footsteps crossing the sala when everyone was in bed. And sometimes the doors and windows would open and shut by themselves, or some of their belongings would disappear, only to reappear someplace else. But the shape that watched from the window, no one ever saw again. The end. I am like Angela, you know. I could see things that normal people can't. I am what they call touched magic. I have friends from the other side of the veil, the other side of the human world. They're actually with me today. Can you see them? Do you see Apple? Or do you see my little friend here? Oh, don't worry. They will not hurt you. They're not exactly monsters, you know. Sometimes, us humans are the monsters we fear the most. So, I hope you enjoyed that story. I believe Kulog will come visit tonight, and I shall welcome him. So until next Stories in the Dark, this is Neoma